I couldn't help myself but to make a few statements on this video that I found by the Young Turks that I watched recently, and I'm just going to share them with you. I love watching the Young Turks, but lately they've really lost all credibility. I like watching Cenk and his historical views of things, but Anna, I'm just going to go over some of this video and have a laugh at him a little bit.
Terrifying. He says the following, and this is based on what the journalist tweeted. His name is David Richardson. He says, I asked Milo Yiannopoulos to comment for a story. His response, quote, I can't wait for the vigilante squads to start gunning journalists down on sight.
Okay. That's pretty funny.
Who was uncivil again? I'm trying to remember. Was it the left or the right?
It was the
remember
left.
When figures on the left asked for journalists to be gunned down in the streets
yes,
by vigilante
actually, I remember
thugs?
that very well.
Oh, no,
Stephen
right,
Crowder
I don't.
covered that thoroughly.
It has consistently been the right wing that has pushed for violence and that has committed violence in places like Charlottesville. And
unsurprising, like one example that he can come up with, Charlottesville.
Now we know exactly where you stand and where your fellow alt-right guys stand on issues like this.
Milo specifically said he doesn't stand for the alt-right.
I know, exactly.
And which specific portion about Maxine Waters? Which of the numerous things she's done? Should we be specific here? But seriously, I'll do an entire video about Maxine Waters a little bit later. It's going to take a lot of work. That woman is psycho. I would not stand with her.
So Milo Yiannopoulos has a history of saying ridiculous, outrageous things, right? And people give him a platform.
Yes, dear. Milo is paid privately very well to give talks because people want to hear him.
Look, I don't know the context of the story, so I don't want to be too critical, but don't give this guy a platform as a legitimate individual who should provide commentary for a story. He is not
don't
a
want to be
good
too
person.
critical,
And by
but
the way,
you're doing an entire video displayed to 4 million people.
To gun down journalists.
If Milo was actually calling to have journalists gunned down, he would be putting them in the line of direct harm, and that actually would be a felony. So here we go with some more bullshit from the Young Turks. Woo!
In the midst of right-wingers being driven out of restaurants, maybe I should talk to Milo. You're playing a different game than he is. You're playing a legitimate game. Hey, I'm a reporter. I'm trying to figure out people's reactions, etc. They're playing a game of, I don't care about the rules. I don't care you're a member of the press. I don't care about the Constitution. I don't care about the First Amendment. If we get in charge, we're going to put on some brown shirts and we're going to go commit violence.
What the fuck are you on about, Cenk? Do you not realize that people are responsible for their own actions? Do you think Milo is coercing people to do violent crimes or convincing or inciting? Oh, you think they're inciting. Yeah, gotcha.
And remember, one of the issues that kind of put him out in the public as I wouldn't say household name, but as a public figure, I guess.
He's a household name. It's okay.
His disdain for Muslims and his messaging regarding how Muslims are terrorists and we should fear them and they're horrible. I mean,
you have to take Anna's word for it here because I've literally never heard Milo say anything like this before.
I mean, you're advocating for vigilantes to gun down journalists. Like, I'm definitely more concerned about you here in the United States than I am about Muslims who might want to come in for travel or for immigration, whatever reason that they'd want to come in. Like, you are the person
to,
who
take
keeps
advantage of
pushing
social
the
welfare
boundaries
programs
and keeps
done in the European countries like
for
Sweden.
violence.
Nope.
You incite violence.
Better not cross
and then you
that bridge.
have the audacity to point to other people and claim that they're violent. So part of the reason why he had become as big as he was because the media just kept having him on.
Yeah.
Right? They kept giving him a platform.
Because people want to watch him. People enjoy his content.
Media, journalism, all of that, right, is important. And I'm not saying that because of what we do. I think that it's incredibly important to fact check the people that you have on your show. And that's not because I'm a fan of arguing or debating with your guests. It's just important that if you have a platform and you're allowing someone to say whatever it is that they want to say, you don't want half-truths, misinformation, lies to get out there in the public.
Like the bullshit CNN's been pushing for the last 17 months, I guess now.
But there's this whole notion now that it's a very intellectual thing to just allow people to come on your show and say whatever they want without challenging them. That's what real journalist is. I mean, that's a real intellectual.
I can't say I look to Milo for an intellectual discussion, but I sure as hell can't look to the Young Turks.
It's because you're nothing more than an intellectual lightweight, okay? And a perfect
Boom,
example of
motherfucker.
that is Dave Rubin. So I've been quiet about Dave Rubin for years, but I know Dave Rubin probably better than anyone else in this company because we were very close friends.
So here's the real point to the whole video. They gotta bash Milo and make sure everybody knows he's a bad guy. He's a fucking horrible person. Now let's go to Dave Rubin and tie them together.
Okay, went to dinner at his house every weekend until all of a sudden he's not liberal anymore. All of a sudden, after getting some funding from the Koch brothers, he's now a libertarian. We'll get to that in just a second. But the reason why I have such a huge problem with Dave Rubin is because he's had Milo Yiannopoulos on his show twice, hour-long interviews. And
both interviews were very good. I highly recommend you check them out.
And Milo was able to say whatever he wanted to say without any pushback from Dave Rubin, including
part of that intellectual
anti-Semitic
conversation
remarks.
you were talking about earlier.
Here's an example.
Well, let me take the ultimate example, what remains the big taboo in society, which is anti-Semitism, right? Most of the Generation Trump, the alt-right people, the people who like me, they're not anti-Semites. They don't care about Jews. They may have some assumptions about Jews. They may have some prejudice about Jews, like the Jews run everything. Well, we do. The Jews run all the banks. Well, we do. The Jews run the media. Well, we do. You know, I mean, they're right about all that stuff. Now, what you do with that is the issue. But the reason they go on about
I don't even know where to start with that, so just go.
We do. It's a fact. This is not in debate. It's a statistical fact. You know, Jews run most of the banks. Jews completely dominate the media, vastly disproportionately represented in all of these professions. That's just a fact. It's not anti-Semitic to point out statistics. But you know, you seem to have you've missed what you agree with me on feminism. Like, it's not sexist to point out statistics. I'm suggesting to you, it's not anti-Semitic to point out that these things are true. Now, the anti-Semitism on the internet.
Okay, that's not remotely true. That's not a stat. That's not a fact. And if you want to see how someone challenges that deeply anti-Semitic trope, watch my interview with David Duke, where I shred him.
No, I'm not saying that all blacks are criminals, but I'm saying percentage-wise, blacks are generally they're actually about 6 times more likely to be a felon and commit a violent crime in this country than whites are per capita.
David, I don't want to get into a huge debate here. You're going to throw around numbers that can't
let's
be
avoid the
verified.
debate.
We don't do any of that. We just go into the black areas and make our quota by arresting people, whether they did something wrong or not. We didn't need to get prosecutions. We just need to arrest black people.
Here's Cenk thinking that cops actually need to make quotas.
So, for example,
I have data. I've got exact quotes on my website.
Hold on. Now let me finish.
People can check it out for themselves, and you can look at the 2011
David, let me finish.
The gun report.
This is how Cenk thinks he shredded David Duke.
And every time he mentions a Jewish banker, I mention a non-Jewish banker. Why? Because I actually bothered to do my homework. And I know that David Duke is a monster, and that if you're going to have a discussion with him, you have to actually rebut what he says, and you have to come with actual facts. And
holy shit, is this really new to you, Cenk?
I don't know what to say about that. Just go.
No, it's actually worse than that. Dave Rubin sells it as, I'm far more intellectual, and as a result, I refuse to engage in a debate or an argument. I allow people to make their case on my show. No, you're lazy.
You mean he allows
was
people
lazy
with
when he
different
worked here.
perspectives to
He's
talk?
lazy now with his ridiculous show where he proves time and time again that he doesn't know anything.
Boy, you really think low of your viewers, don't you, Anna? Gosh.
And why do I know he's lazy? Why did he really leave the Young Turks? Can I please finally tell the truth about why he left the Young Turks? He wanted to make a 6-figure salary to host a 30-minute-a-week show.
So he's selfish and egotistical. Big fucking deal.
When everyone here, because we work for an independent news company, was getting paid far less while working 12-hour days. That's why Dave Rubin left the company. And now all of a sudden he's getting funded by the Koch brothers, and all of a sudden his opinions are very different.
He was attacking Tyler Levine, who worked at The New Yorker. And then after she left that organization, Yiannopoulos sent $14.88 via PayPal to former New Yorker fact checker Tyler Levine, okay? Why $14.88? That seems like a curious figure, and why is he even sending her money? And by the way, she's Jewish. The 1488, known to be a combination of digits popularly used by white supremacists and neo-Nazis. 14 to represent the infamous 14 words, a mantra about securing a future for white children, and 88 to represent Heil Hitler.
Classy.
That's pretty funny.
Super classy.
Hey, I don't know what to say about that. Just go.
But now all of a sudden, you know, his mind has changed to the point where he's okay with someone coming onto his program and spreading, you know, ridiculous anti-Semitic stereotypes.
Like the Jews run everything. Well, we do. The Jews run all the banks. Well, we do. The Jews run the media. Well, we do.
I'm gonna have to re-Google anti-Semitic.
So let's show the clip, because here's a guy who says his main claim to fame is he doesn't challenge anything. But when you talk about Israeli aggression, he does get quite worked up. Now, if you're an anti-Semite, go. But hey, Israel does something wrong. It apparently animated him.
There aren't really rules to war. We can all intellectualize the rules to war, but there aren't really rules to war. Hamas, everything they do is against all the rules of war by shooting from civilian areas at civilian areas. So they're doing a double war crime. But I don't believe there's no rules to war. You know, that's just that's not real. Again, it's an intellectual exercise.
That was his response to the Israeli side attacking schools and hospitals with civilians in them. That was his response to it. And he was outraged that no one defended him. So that's who Dave Rubin is. You know, the right wing loves him now because he's a puppet for the right wing.
Set your house in order before you criticize the world. Didn't you just take 20 million from Jeffrey Katzenberg?
Again, you know, he's funded by the Koch brothers. I'm not just making that up. I don't believe in conspiracy theories. September 21st, 2016, Rubin and Learn Liberty announced a partnership together. What is Learn Liberty?
Oh, I can't wait to see how little Anna knows about Learn Liberty.
It's a part of the Institute for Human Studies, which is largely funded by Charles Koch.
That's the Institute for Humane Studies. Now let's hear her point out that that was 4 years ago that funding took place.
So Charles Koch has donated $12.4 million to the organization between 2008 and 2012. Look, he's living the life. He always wanted to make money. He's finally living his dream of making money.
I think this is the best part of the entire show right here, where they're honest about what he wants out of life.
Money.
Awesome.
But if you want to get a sense of how little he really knows, just check out his latest episode with Joe Rogan. It was fantastic. And also check out his Reddit Ask Me Anything, where people simply asked him questions about his own political identity and he couldn't answer. He bombed so badly.
I think that's a problem most libertarians have, is they don't really identify with either Democrats or Republicans. I'm hoping you guys understand that.
Yeah, so when he was here, we let him say anything he wanted, and he got to represent any position to his heart's content. In that case, he was taking the right-wing position. I guess that was his real ideology all along. But for everything else, he pretended to be a liberal.
I believe the correct terminology is classical liberal, and libertarians have a lot in common with that ideology. So I don't know why Cenk plays dumb here.
And now he still pretends to be a liberal while taking Koch brothers' money and giving platforms to well-known anti-Semites. BuzzFeed did a gigantic article about Milo and how he worked with both white supremacists and neo-Nazis to write the alt-right Bible for Breitbart. Richard Spencer and other neo-Nazis did Heil Hitler salutes when Milo was singing, and he did not react poorly to that at all. And the list goes on of the things that Milo has done.
All right, let's be honest here. Cenk doesn't really think Milo is a Nazi, or even Richard Spencer for that matter. If he does, I think he's being really disingenuous. We all know that a gay Jew is most likely not a Nazi. And with those kinds of accusations, we're just here to demonize Milo and demonize Dave Rubin and tie them together. And here was another little catch. We're trying to bring in Richard Spencer and tie all three of these together. The remainder of the video is Cenk referring to Milo as an anti-Semite again, and how dare Dave Rubin have on an anti-Semite. So what they're doing here is, like I said, it's very disingenuous. They're trashing Milo, making him, demonizing him. Hell, the backdrop of the whole video is this demon-painted picture of Milo and tying him to Dave Rubin. And at the end there, they stab in some Richard Spencer just to make sure that everybody knows how horrible these three people are. And what they're doing is disingenuous, and I support it 100%. Because I support free speech, and I think that daylight is the best disinfectant. So let them continue to talk, let them continue to do what they do. As I used to support the Young Turks, I've watched them since my early days in college, and they are an entire different monster now. So I'm not going to combat them, I just want to make a few comments of my own. Here we are.